Dumelang mangwanani mwalelepo vukenjani kekwas vanabe Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. As usual, you're joined by Ashwin Berry and Aina Raiza Kweo.
Happy Thursday, everyone. Today is Make Your Dreams Come True Day. People often make the mistake of letting their dreams remain just that, dreams. Now, dreams can be fulfilled with a little planning and work, and even sometimes just the courage to do something different than you have in the past. And that's how you can make your dreams come true. And here is a video on that. In our first story this morning, terrorism has no place in SADC. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has said acts of terrorism cannot be permitted to thrive in the Southern African Development Community member states. Ramaphosa said this in Lilongwe on Tuesday at the start of the extraordinary Troika Summit for the SADC organ on politics, defense and security cooperation. The Troika Summit preceded the extraordinary summit of heads of state and the government for SADC, which took place in Lilongwe yesterday. Ramaphosa, who is the chairperson of the organ, said since SADC deployed the mission to Mozambique's Cabo Delgado, the security situation in the area has improved. The efforts of our mission, working in collaboration with Mozambican Defense Force, have created safe passage to facilitate the provision of humanitarian assistance to the population affected by terrorist activities.
Now in Ethiopia, freed opposition leader ready to take part in national dialogue. The Ethiopian journalist, blogger, and founder of the Balderas for Genuine Democracy Party, Eskinder Nega, has expressed his intention to participate in a national dialogue. After more than a year in prison, the 52-year-old opposition leader who recovered his freedom last Friday is ready to take part in a national dialogue process. If there is a dialogue, of course we'll be part of it, he said. The country needs a national dialogue. Whether this will bear fruit or whether this would be a trustworthy process is another question. The Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had called for national reconciliation in his Orthodox Christmas message. He proceeded to pardon on January 7 numerous prominent opposition figures as he hoped to pave the way to a lasting solution to Ethiopia's problems in a non-violent and peaceful way. In a first move to restore the unity of the nation and following a successful campaign to halt the advance of the Tigrayan forces eager to march on Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian Federal Army and its allies announced last December they would not advance deeper into the Tigray region.
South Africa fires a suspect charged with terrorism. In South Africa, the main suspect in the parliament's fire in early January was charged this Tuesday for terrorism. 49-year-old Zandile Mafe appeared in court for the second time since he was arrested on the day of the fire. Last week, the suspect was charged with housebreaking with intent to steal, theft, 2 counts of arson, and possession of an explosive device. The suspect's lawyer believes that his client needs to be observed by medical experts. To our surprise, only this morning, as you have heard by the council, and only this morning they revealed it is for the very first time that my client was assessed by the documentation to that regard. He will have to be referred to the mental observation, said Luvuyo Godwala, the lawyer for Zandile Mafe.
In our next story, Egypt's El-Sisi criticizes EU on refugees. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on Tuesday criticized European governments' handling of the migration issue. El-Sisi said Egypt was hosting 6 million people who escaped conflict and poverty in their own countries. We didn't reject them or put them in camps. I am talking about huge numbers, not 5,000 or 10,000. Our friends in Europe refused to receive them, he said. For some, Egypt is a destination and a haven, the closest and easiest country for them to enter. For others, it is a point of transit before attempting the dangerous Mediterranean crossing to Europe. But numbers of migrants setting out from Egypt are few compared to how many travel from Libya. Libya has emerged as the dominant transit point for migrants fleeing war and poverty in Africa and the Middle East, hoping for a better life in Europe. Oil-rich Libya plunged into chaos after the 2011 NATO-backed uprising ousted and killed longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Egypt has for decades been a refuge for sub-Saharan African migrants trying to escape war or poverty.
Limpopo horror accident update. 17 died in a head-on collision. The 22-seater Iveco bus and Toyota SUV collided on the N1 near Mokofong off-ramp in the Limpopo on Tuesday when the driver of the SUV reportedly lost control after a tire burst. Officials on Wednesday confirmed the death toll now stands at 17. As of Tuesday evening, 12 people have died while 8 escaped with injuries. Several passengers were trapped in the burning bus, and authorities confirmed 5 more bodies were discovered trapped in the debris. Arrive Alive reported that the bus burst into flames and 11 occupants trapped inside were burnt to death. The driver of the SUV was also killed on impact. The Department of Transport and Community Safety on Tuesday evening said in a statement that the driver of the SUV collided head-on with the 22-seater bus when a tire burst.
All right, Uganda prosecutor withdraws case against Bobi Wine. The public prosecutor in Uganda has withdrawn a case against opposition leader Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine. The politician had been accused of giving false details about his age while registering for a diploma at Makerere University. Bobi Wine has in the past had his academic credentials questioned. He ran against Uganda's long-term president Yoweri Museveni in last year's elections and complained of fraud. Bobi Wine is a fierce critic of the president.
Vaccine challenge. A new law forcing all workers to be vaccinated for COVID-19 is facing a legal challenge. The government has announced that all employees, whether private or public, will not be allowed to work unless they have been vaccinated. It also said unvaccinated people will not be allowed to seek medical help at the health centers. The controversial decisions were announced by Prime Minister Mokoetsi Majoro during his COVID-19 update speech on Monday. He said these measures are meant to curb the spread of the virus, whose Omicron variant is mutating and the country and threatening to overwhelm the country's already fragile health system. But as the government prepares to enforce the regulations, some individuals are rolling up their sleeves for a legal fight. At the center of their challenge is the constitutionality of the regulations and that they violate civil liberties. The individuals, who are mostly from the private sector, will argue that the regulations violate their right to life, association, privacy, movement, and work.
All right, in our next story, we are in Tanzania as 6 journalists plus 14 people die in road accident. At least 14 people, including including 6 journalists, died this Tuesday in a road accident near Lake Victoria in Tanzania, a local official said. Among the travelers who were visiting with a senior official from the Mwanza region were television and press journalists, as well as members of the media in the region. Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan has already expressed her condolences to the victims' families on the social network Twitter and said she was praying for the speedy recovery of the injured. Last week, 10 people died when a boat carrying people to a funeral in the Zanzibar archipelago in the Indian Ocean sank.
Goma traffic normalization after suspension of the taxi color standardization measure. The motorist strike has just been lifted in Goma following the suspension of the measure relating to the standardization of the color of public transport vehicles. Traffic returned to normal on Tuesday after the suspension of the measures to standardize the color of taxi taken by the mayor of the city, Francis Kayeba Mokosa. The mayor announced that a meeting with all concerned parties will be organized on Tuesday. On Monday, the 10th of January, it was difficult to travel by bus or taxi in the city of Goma. The drivers of the taxi and taxi buses observed a strike in protest against the mayor's decision, asking them to paint their vehicles with yellow color, thus disrupting all socio-economic activities. Justifying this measure, the mayor of the city raised the problem of insecurity. For vehicle owners, a consensus was needed before this measure was applied.
Now, in the last of our top stories, Tanzania's hero rat Magawa dies at age 8. Magawa, the Tanzanian rat who was awarded a gold medal for his heroism in 2020 and retired from his job of detecting landmines in 2021, has died. In a career that spanned over 5 years, the rodent sniffed out 71 landmines and dozens more unexploded items in Cambodia. At the time of his retirement, Magawa had cleared more than 141,000 square meters of land, the equivalent of some 20 football pitches. But his handler Malin said the then 7-year-old African giant pouched rat was slowing down as he reached old age, and she wanted to respect his needs. Unfortunately, at the age of 8, Magawa passed away. Magawa was born in Morogoro, Tanzania in 2014 and was trained at Sokoine University of Agriculture. In 2016, Magawa moved to Cambodia's northwestern city of Siem Reap, home of the famed Angkor temples, to begin his bomb-sniffing career. I mean, I look at the lives this rat has saved, and it's making me reflect. I am not sure if I'm doing as much as I can for humanity, but, you know, rest in peace, Magawa. Now, in the Southern African region, particularly in South Africa and Zimbabwe, there has been some loss of confidence with regards to the electorate viewing the ruling elite. Now, political scientist Henning Mauber believes Namibia is on the same path. He'll be expanding on that after the break. Now, according to a new article published by political scientist Henning Mauber, politics in Namibia is facing the same fallout as in Zimbabwe and South Africa and many countries in the world where the electorate has lost confidence in the ruling elite. Jo Marie Duddy speaks to Professor Mauber.
Welcome to Professor Henning Mauber, a Namibian-born political scientist, nowadays working overseas. Welcome, Professor. Welcome to Namibia.
Thank you very much, Marie, and also greetings to all those who might listen in.
Professor Melber, the latest piece that you have published looks at social cohesion in Namibia. In a nutshell, summarize the status of social cohesion in society at the moment.
Similar to what we witnessed in Zimbabwe during the first 20 years of independence, and we are currently witnessing in South Africa as well, that the former liberation movements as government, while they still retain power, are losing support among the electorate. And the writing is on the wall for Namibia as well. And as we can see, it's also a subject in the dominant party in SWAPO, especially now with the rumor mongering starting about the forthcoming party congress, which plays a decisive role in how to position oneself for the next national and presidential elections. So the article basically takes stock of the 30 years, recapitulates why SWAPO was able to play this hegemonic role. Within the definition of democracy, there were not really big-scale manipulations of the elections. The electorate freely cast its vote in support of SWAPO, but now also decides freely to withdraw support to SWAPO. And I think there are different explanations. The one is that the populist paradigm, which the party promoted, did not hold when it comes to measuring it against the delivery, against implementation of promises. There was a lack of delivery, and it added significantly to the frustration among the people. And let's not forget that fish rot marked the tip of the iceberg. And it seemed to have reached a tipping point in the sense that people say enough is enough. So Namibia is one of the tales of a populist dominant regime which risks to lose the majority support in the electorate for non-delivery and for pursuing elite interests, where the people start to realize that is not their interest.
Professor Melber, a lot of local observers have warned that because of this lack of delivery on promises and the lack of progress and the lack of a tangible improvement in people's livelihoods, that in the interim, the situation is perfect for civil strife. Do you think that that might be a problem?
While there is a huge amount of aggression and violence in civil daily life, there's a total absence of politically motivated violence so far. Thank God. And I really hope that it remains like that. Also, the opposition parties, while they resort to some militant rhetoric, and we had some unpleasant scenes in the National Assembly, even bordering to physical encounters, it's all within the confinements of a rather decent political culture. Yes, the rhetoric borders at times to hate speech, and there are multiple culprits when it comes to that, but it does not really instigate politically motivated serious violence so far. And I think that is one of the benefits we have seen since independence, the rather political stability under the hegemonic former liberation movement in power. And maybe that's one of the assets we could also keep, because the worst case scenario would be if political differences would turn into political instigated violence. And there is my biggest hope that while SWAPO was always adamant that, of course, it adheres to democracy, that was very easy to do so when you know that you get anything above 2/3 of the votes. Of course, you're a Democrat then. Uh, if you don't have to be Putin as Geinkop, then it's easy to be a Democrat. My hope is sincerely that SWAPO is serious about adhering to the rules of democracy, even face times where it might risk to lose the majority among the people. At the moment, I do not see that there might be civil strife. And for the reasons I just summarized, I hope we will never see it in Namibia. We do not want to have a similar situation like in mid-year last year in South Africa, where people are looting the shopping malls in a failed coup d'etat. That's not what we need. And it would make the situation worse, not only for SWAPO, for everyone in Namibia.
Insightful as always to talk to you. I'm sure we'll have you back during the course of this year. Until then, take care.
Thank you so much, and greetings to all. I wish you a nice, good year with health, prosperity, and rain.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now we are going to cross over to Zimbabwe, where Talent Gore has the stories on the ground. Talent, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Ashwin. How are you this morning?
All right, we understand that the ZESA warns of more power cuts over the next 2 weeks. Please elaborate.
Well, Power Utility Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority has warned of fresh power cuts in the coming weeks. They say that there is work that is being done at Kariba, and they say that the power cuts would resume to repair the demo. The hydropower station at Kariba accounts for most of Zimbabwe's electricity generation, and work was suspended just before Christmas to ease power shortages during the holidays. So they've said that now work has resumed at the power station, and now we're going to be experiencing power cuts. Apparently during the holidays we were not experiencing power cuts, but just last week we started experiencing power cuts, and some people were actually complaining that we are going for 12 hours without power. And at that particular moment, ZESA had not said anything. They had not issued a statement, so there was need for them to inform the public as to what was going on with power. So they've said that now they have resumed work at the demo, and we're going to be experiencing power cuts in the coming weeks, and they will tell us when the power will be back on regularly.
All right. Now, I understand prisoners are demanding voting rights. Could you please get into that story?
So the High Court will, for the second time, hear an application filed by prisoners in 2017 seeking to be allowed to vote during elections after the judge who initially had the matter passed on before delivering judgment. The application will now be heard on January 25 this year. The judge who initially presided over the matter passed in January 2021 after reserving judgment in July 2018. In their application, the prisoners argued that for the period they were in detention, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission never carried out any voter education campaigns, including voter registration, or enabled prisoners to vote during general elections and by-elections. So the prisoners, they are stating that they have the right to vote in elections and referendums as enshrined in the Constitution of Zimbabwe. So they are saying that in their application, the prisoners are saying that they want the High Court to issue an order compelling Justice Minister Justice Minister Ziambi, Zimbabwe Electoral Commission Chairperson Justice Chugumba, and the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to register prisoners on the national voters roll so that they will be able to vote, as it is their right to vote regardless of their status, regardless of them being in prison.
Indeed.
All right, please talk to us about the petrol price drop in Zimbabwe.
So apparently fuel prices went down slightly in last week because apparently Zimbabwe has scrapped out petrol blending, which was first introduced in 2011. When the blending was first introduced, the government said that it would reduce Zimbabwe's import bill and lead to cheaper prices. But we were not experiencing any and cheaper fuel prices. Apparently, Zimbabwe's petrol is regarded as one of the most expensive in the region. But when they introduced the ethanol in 2011, they'd say that we're going to be having the lowest, the cheapest petrol, but it was not the case. So they have since scrapped out ethanol, and the petrol price went slightly down. It went from $42 US to $41. So they say that this is because we have scrapped out the ethanol, the blending, which we were the ethanol that we were using to blend petrol with.
All right. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good having you on Africa Good Morning. Something else that is always good is good weather. That's not guaranteed, but just outside, it was feeling a little good, wasn't it, Aina? It was feeling like it's on our side. Let's check out the weather forecast up next. Now, Africa Good Morning remains your reliable source for decentralized African news. Keeping that in mind, we're going to take a trip to Botswana and listen to what Maseko Mokwasa has for us. We understand President Masisi is back in office. Maseko, take it away and deliver your package from Botswana.
Africa, good morning. Good morning to you, Ashwin and Aina in studio. Starting with good news, President of Botswana, Mokgweetsi Masisi, who had tested positive for COVID-19, is back in office after completing his mandatory self-isolation. In a statement by the acting permanent secretary of Botswana Government Communications and Information Systems, Mr. John Thomas Dibowe, members of public are informed that His Excellency Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi, President of the Republic of Botswana, has completed his self-isolation. We are pleased to inform the nation that his medical team has assessed his health and subsequently cleared him because he continues to have no COVID-19 associated symptoms, Mr. Dibowe added. President Masisi tested positive for the virus in the last week after he earlier met President Filipe Nyusi of Mozambique. In Mozambique, the Mozambican president also reportedly went into isolation around the same time. In following news, the Independent Electoral Commission, IEC, has appointed January 17 to March 1, 2022 supplementary voter registration period. It is done to give an opportunity to those who had not registered for the 2019 general election, according to the IEC spokesperson Ida Seoforing. Supplementary registration helps to give an opportunity to those who had not registered but do have a valid entry in the roll for whatever reason, and those who had turned 18 years of age just after the cutoff of April 28, 2019. During this time, registered voters may also transfer their registration. The Independent Electoral Commission will, from time to time, announce a general registration period whereby eligible citizens can ensure that they are included in the voters' rolls. At times other than general registration periods, eligible citizens can register to be added to the voters' list with the principal registration officer. Upon registration, voters will be included in the voters' roll for their constituency and issued a voters' registration card, which allows them during by-elections between the last general election and the next one in 2024. Last but not least, the Ministry of Basic Education has terminated teachers' contracts amidst rumors and suspicion of corruption. It is alleged that there are irregularities in hiring some of the teaching staff based on bribery, nepotism, and corrupt dealings. Currently, the ministry is said to be overstaffed as a result, and teachers arrive to find letters of termination in many of their stations when schools reopened this week. This comes after the Minister of Basic Education, Fidelis Molao, announced before Parliament in November last year that government will renew contracts of temporary teachers for the year 2022 after several inquiries from the Botswana Teachers Union. BTU President Mr. Uizile has before said that there is an unhealthy relationship between government and the union, adding that the former has a tendency of failing to consult stakeholders. We are hoping that there's a resolution that can be made, considering how many disruptions the pandemic has already had on the education system. This brings me to the end of my bulletin for today. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Masego Mohwasa, for delivering that comprehensive report from Botswana. Now, Angola is among the 3 largest economies in the sub-Saharan region. We'll be getting into that and more for your economic news after the break. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. As promised, it's time for us to get into your economic news stories. Now, previously, I highlighted that Angola is one of the 3 largest economies in the sub-Saharan region. Let's get into that. The World Bank announced yesterday in Washington that the 3 largest economies in the sub-Saharan region, namely Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola, should have grown by 3.1% last year, which reflects an improvement on previous estimates. In the report on Africa's growth prospects, the World Bank points out that the growth of Angola and Nigeria was supported by the recovery in the non-oil sector, with oil production in the region continuing below pre-pandemic levels due to disruptions in maintenance work and declining investments in extractive industries. Production in sub-Saharan Africa grew by an estimated 3.5% in 2021, fueled by a recovery in raw material prices and an easing of restrictions, reads the Global Economic Outlook. However, the World Bank warns that the recovery remains fragile and insufficient to reverse the increase in poverty due to the impact of the pandemic, and the threat of recurrent outbreaks of COVID-19 continues, which makes with the growth forecast to be almost 1 percentage point below the estimate for 2019 and 2020.
Namibia advised to be smart with green hydrogen. The government has been advised against making its resources available to industrialized nations to enable them to meet their clean energy needs. Dieter von Osten, the director of VO Consulting, an independent specialist consulting firm active in energy, environment, and radiation sectors, recently suggested the country should take care to almost meet its own development needs. Namibia's green hydrogen project seeks to ultimately produce 300,000 tons of green hydrogen per year for regional and global markets, either as pure green hydrogen or in a derivative green form. The first phase, which is expected to enter production in 2026, will see the creation of 2 gigawatts of renewable electricity generation capacity to produce green hydrogen for conversion into green ammonia at the estimated capital cost of $4.4 billion US.
State collapse and other risks threatening South Africa over the next 2 years. The World Economic Forum has published its Global Risks Report detailing some of the key risks facing South Africa over the coming years. Vaccine inequality and a resultant uneven economic recovery risk compounding social fractures and geopolitical tensions. In the poorest 52 countries, home to 20% of the world's people, only 6% of the population had been vaccinated at the time of the report. As part of its report, the forum detailed the top 5 risks for each of the 124 economies surveyed. According to the findings, the 5 biggest risks facing South Africa include prolonged economic stagnation, employment and livelihood crises, state collapse, failure of public infrastructure, the proliferation of illicit economic activity. Social cohesion erosion is the risk that has worsened the most globally since the start of the COVID-19 crisis. In 31 of the 124 countries surveyed in the EOS, including Argentina, France, Germany, Mexico, and South Africa among the G20, social cohesion erosion was seen as a top 10 short-term threat to these countries.
Alexandra Forbes Investment appoints a new CEO. Alexandra Forbes has appointed Anne Lee Peel as Chief Executive Officer of the group's investment division, effective as of the 1st of February 2022. The chartered financial analyst charter holder has 20 years of experience in the investment industry and has attended the Executive Women in Leadership program of the Stanford Graduate School of Business. Lee Peel is ideally placed to lead the next phase of growth of the Alexandra Forbes investment, given her deep technical expertise, understanding of the market, and leadership track record, the company said in a statement. She will join Alexandra Forbes Group Executive Committee to ensure that investments continue to play a key role in the execution of the group's group's strategy. Lipil has also previously served as the head of Global Manager Research and ultimately Deputy Chief Investment Officer of Alexandra Forbes Investment, which the group says gives her direct insight into the dynamics of the business and its clients.
Halala, as they say. I'm not really sure if I've ever seen that ethnicity at the top of Alexander Forbes, but we love to see it. You go, Queen. This is Still Africa. Good morning. After the break, we'll be talking about the AFCON results as well as the first female referee at AFCON. Stick around for your sports news just now.
A fabric mask acts as a barrier to prevent the spread of the virus. It must be used correctly and always combined with other measures to protect yourself and everyone else. When wearing a fabric mask, clean your hands before putting it on. Inspect the mask and do not use it if it is damaged or dirty. Cover your mouth, nose and chin. Adjust the mask to your face, leaving no gaps on the sides. Avoid touching the mask while wearing it. Change your mask once it gets dirty or wet. To take off the mask, clean your hands first. Remove it by the straps behind the head or ears without touching the front of the mask. As you remove the mask, pull it away from your face. Clean your hands after taking off any mask. If you need to reuse a fabric mask, store it in a clean, resealable bag. Hold the mask at the elastic ends when removing it from the bag and make sure it is not dirty or wet before using it again. Wash fabric masks in soap or detergent, preferably with hot water, at least once a day. Make sure you have your own mask and do not share it with others. When wearing a mask, make sure you know how to put it on, use it, remove it, and discard it or wash it correctly. Remember that a mask alone cannot protect you. When wearing a mask, continue to adopt other measures to prevent the spread of the virus. Stay at least 1 meter away from others. Clean your hands frequently and thoroughly, and avoid touching your face and mask. Stay safe, and let's all prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Let's get into your sports news. Now, I'm not sure if it's mutual fear or hesitation, or perhaps the competition has gotten just that good. But yesterday, once again, we had 3 scorelines of just 1-0 at AFCON. Let's get into the results. In the first match of the day, Mali beat Tunisia with 1-0. Mauritania played against Gambia, and it was Gambia that won with 1-0. Ivory Coast took on Equatorial Guinea and won with 1-0.
In our next story, Salima Mukangsanga is the first female referee at CAN 2022. During this edition of AFCON, which currently takes place in Cameroon, Ms. Salima will become the first African woman to officiate a continental football competition. In the history of the competition, it is for the first time that the African Cup of Nations has involved a woman in a refereeing matches. And the first person is Salima Mukangasa, a 33-year-old Rwandan official. Since her young age, she was more attracted to basketball. I loved basketball and wanted to take it very seriously, but access to basketball infrastructure and coaches was difficult. This is how I ended up arbitrating, which I have never regretted, she indicated in 2019 at the Rwandan newspaper New Times. While in 2008, her passion of arbitration developed during her last year of high school within the district of Musanze. The following year, she obtained her first arbitration certificate while embarking on a bachelor's degree in nursing and midwifery at Gitwe University in Rwanda. In 2012, she was promoted to referee by the CAF and began to take part in various club meetings and over the continent, even selection matches, but as an assistant referee. The main turning point came in 2014 when she served as central referee for the first time in an international match for a Zambia-Tanzania and qualifying for the 2014 African Women's Championship.
All right, we love to see it. Now, in December, I didn't get a chance to go to Swakopmund. I didn't. Some people did, I won't say who. But now I have a reason, because this Saturday, Christine Boma and Beatrice Masilingi are set for a Swakop showdown. Christine Boma and Beatrice Masilingi will be the star attractions when the first leg of Athletics Namibia's Grand Prix Series takes place in Swakopmund on Saturday. The two athletes last week assisted with coaching at the Quinton Steel Boats Athletics Training Camp in Windhoek, where their coach Henk Botha said they will both compete in the 100 meters. We have been working hard on our off-season training program. There's a long and exciting
had been building up for the event after both Namibia's men and women's team had qualified, but the International Hockey Federation yesterday announced that it had been cancelled due to deteriorating health situation in Belgium. It is with great regret that the International Hockey Federation and Hockey Belgium are forced to cancel the FIH Indoor Hockey World Cup Belgium 2022, which was scheduled to take place in League from the 2nd to the 6th of February 2022. After 2 years of intensive preparatory work, the FIH posted on its website. The news comes as a bitter blow to Namibia's hockey community, according to the president of the Namibian Hockey Union. We are very, very sad that the World Cup has been cancelled. It's a once-off-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and our teams were very well prepared and looking forward to showcasing their talent against the best in the world.
I can understand they're disappointed because end of 2021, they had some really good wins and they were building momentum. Yeah. Better luck next time. Hopefully it happens. This is To Africa Good Morning. We'll take a short break and we'll be back with your headlines. Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning, as we have been broadcasting from 7 a.m., bringing you all the news happening in the African continent and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not, here are some of the highlights. Terrorism has no place in SADC. Ethiopia freed opposition leader ready to take part in national dialogue. South Africa's fire suspects charged with terrorism. Egypt's El-Sisi criticizes EU on refugees. Angola among the 3 largest economies in the sub-Saharan region. And in sport, Salima Mukasanga, first female referee at AFCON 2022. Those have been our stories.
Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Africa Good Morning. We'll be back again tomorrow for the last time this week. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. That is at Africa Good Morning. Please do remember we are still in the middle of a pandemic. We encourage you to get vaccinated, wear your mask, and avoid unnecessary public gatherings. I also understand that today we have a family meeting with the president, so please tune in on that. Our show still repeats on our website at 8:30 to 9:30. That's at 1 up to. On that note, it's all our love, all our light.
Sera Shakanaka.